What's been your sort of approach when adversity it's such a cliched term, but when life throws that shit at you and throws the unexpected, that curveball that for so many would just crumble you, why is it? And what is it that you can tell people?
I try and hit curveballs. I become a curveball hitter, so I'm going to learn how to hit curveballs.
It's time to get inside your own head. Begin with the psychology behind your behaviors. Infuse it with an acute understanding of self-awareness, emotion, storytelling, body language, and more. Then look at it all through the lens of the latest neuroscience research, broken down to its most digestible form. And you've arrived. Enhanced messaging, deeper connection, heightened influence, and a greater impact on the world. Welcome to the Amplify Podcast with René Rodriguez.
Welcome, everybody, to the Amplify Podcast. And I want to tell you about the person that I get to interview today. And I remember it literally like it was yesterday. It was 20 years ago. I got invited to go to this conference at the Hyatt Minneapolis. I had zero desire to go listen to people talk about the mortgage industry. And I walk in and all I could hear is this buttery voice and thinking, who is that dude up there that sounds so smooth, perfectly articulate? And within literally less than a minute, he started talking about this thing called fiscal literacy, which I'd never heard those two terms put together. And the things that he was sharing were so mind-blowing, and he took complex concepts and ideas and broke them down in a way that I couldn't look away. And that man is no other than Mr. Barry Habib, which I'll bring on in a second. But here's somebody that is a 3-time crystal ball winner, which means he's the most accurate source for the real estate industry. He's an entrepreneur, bought and sold many different businesses. He's an executive producer of The Rock of Ages. That's the Broadway show and the movie. I could go on and on about what he's done. And if you were to go chat GPT and ask who's the most influential mortgage person, and it'll put Barry Habib right at the top. So I can go on and on. He's also, you'll see him on CNN and Fox and Squawk Box. And he is the voice that politicians and the media search for when it comes to understanding interest rates and how the markets function. But today I want to go so much further beyond that, because in knowing him for 20 years, I've come to see that he is so much more. This guy takes on life in a very different way. And even under recent events, you see him take those same approaches to tackle on what I think might be one of his biggest challenges. And so with no further ado, I am excited to bring on my friend, Mr. Barry Habib. Welcome, buddy.
René, it's always great when I get to spend time with you, but it's always a highlight for me.
I want to jump into this, man, because you have done so many different things, and I know I didn't even cover a fraction of these different pieces. How in the world did you get started into understanding the markets? Because I saw you talk about candlesticks, and I saw you looking at I look at these things and I see red and green, and these things go up and down, and it makes zero sense to me. But you've taught an entire industry on how to really literally predict interest rates. How did that even start?
Well, like anyone else, all the things that we're able to try to understand and learn about, and then eventually the best way to learn is by teaching, right? So it happens gradually and it happens passionately. So, the joke that I make is when people hear someone like yourself talk about the way the human brain interacts and different relationships, or if they hear me discuss things that potentially could be interesting about the economy, and it sounds like it's a little bit difficult for them to be able to do this. The thing I always say is that none of us came out of the womb and suddenly started saying, you weren't talking about neuro-linguistic programming. I wasn't talking about what the Fed's going to do or real estate values. These are all learned behaviors. They're all learned ways for us to interpret and educate things. So I think that everyone has the capacity to have an expertise, but the reason I said they have to do it passionately is because you have to throw yourself into it and have a deep desire. Fortunately today, René, there's so many tools that allow you to take the express lane to learn things. So look, René, you said this earlier. I knew nothing about cancer 8 months ago. Nothing really. I mean, just cursory stuff that an average person doesn't. But after being diagnosed with it, I can tell you now, as I discuss my cancer, and you witnessed this actually because you were kind enough to put me in touch with someone who's a physician. Every single person asks me if I'm a physician. So
Right.
if you are passionate about it, you have a desire, you can ramp up really quick in your knowledge base.
I love that because, and this is what I was saying before. Some people make the mistake. It's like, well, if I was as successful as Barry, I could have that same attitude. It's like, no, dude, Barry had that attitude and had that approach and that discipline to life way before the money was there. And people confuse that. And I love that you use the word passion because the word suffering for the last probably 5 years has been one of my sort of deep studies in terms of what is suffering all about. And I came to learn that the word passion actually has the root word is to suffer. And prior to the 13th century, it was the word passion was given to the martyrs that died for their beliefs. And so even the movie The Passion of Christ, so many people thought this was about passionate in the sexual connotation. It had nothing to do with it. That happened in the 16th century where they added that to it. But it was to suffer for something. And you said you got to approach it passionately, which really what I hear Barry saying is that he suffered over the knowledge for years. He slaved himself over that to understand. And the same thing you're doing right now with your diagnosis is you dive in. I think you said you run out of your limits on ChatGPT on a daily basis, which is not easy to do. But you're taking that same approach to all of these things. And I want to come back to the cancer in a minute, but where did you learn? If you were to say, like, I talk about lighthouses and foghorns, meaning that, we are who we are because of either somebody was a lighthouse, they showed us the way, or somebody was a foghorn, showed us who we didn't want to be. Where did you learn that relentlessness? Was it somebody that was a lighthouse in your life, or was it a foghorn that somebody said, like they weren't that way and you kind of had to force yourself to become the light where you had darkness?
You and I are kindred spirits. We both grew up extraordinarily poor. We both had moms that were, great lighthouses for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my mom my dad passed away when I was a young boy. My mom, we were very, very poor. I'm first generation here. She didn't really speak the language very well. She was a very bright woman. She spoke like 7 different languages.
Wow.
But she didn't have any formal education because when she was a young girl, her mom got sick. And, back then, you're talking back in the, 1930s now, that, and this is in Europe, they take the girl out of school. You don't need an education. Anyway, you take care of the stuff in the house. So just an amazing woman. And she had that spirit of wanting to strive and not give up. And I witnessed a lot from her. I witnessed her compassion. I witnessed her willingness to help people. Renee, I tell this story is like, I'd ride the subways with her when I was a young boy in New York City, and we were extraordinarily poor. If she saw somebody even more in need, she would share. She would take out a little change purse and she would give them coins. And she'd talk to me and she'd say, it's good to help people, and God watches when you help people. And Renee, the feeling it gave me when she did this was, it gave me this feeling that, your bank accounts, your wealth's not defined by your bank account. It's defined by really how you feel. And that made me feel wealthy, even though we had no material things.
And so here you've got first generation mother immigrates over here and doesn't have much, but has the push, the desire to keep going. When was that first day you were introduced to the financial markets?
Boy, I don't know if I recall exactly, but sometime in my early 20s, I started to really become interested in the stock market. And, I think I was about 21 years old when I started to make some investments in the stock market on my own. And like anything else, I wanted to learn about it. So I would watch CNBC, I would do some reading. And then it wasn't that much later that I said, well, if I'm going to do this, I had no intention of entering the field as a professional, but I actually got my Series 6, Series 63 license, Series 7 license, so I could understand it and speak fluently. So I've always had this curiosity. And, curiosity is such an important trait, I think. I think we all have it, but sometimes internally, I think we mute it.
Yeah.
And when we're children, we're just so abundantly curious. I think other people around us try to mute our curiosity because we're a pain in the ass as kids asking questions. So sometimes when how we're told to kind of like, when we're guilty as parents sometimes too, to kind of
Stop asking questions.
Stop asking questions. But that's what you want. Yeah. So I've never stopped. I've always been the one to ask questions. Now I've got my friends at ChatGPT that ask questions too. But so I've always had such curiosity. And I think that's helped me to learn. When I was a kid, even with toys, I would break my toys, not because I was a bad kid. I was a good kid, but I was so curious how it worked. I needed to take it apart to see it. And of course, I couldn't put it back together, but I needed to understand it. And it's been that constant need to understand stuff that I think has been an important way for me to develop my personality and my abilities.
And so here you got this, and I love that, because curiosity is such a beautiful, it's a beautiful trait, feeling, skill, discipline, what category it fits into. I was talking to somebody who was a president of Cargill at the time. He wanted me to help him put a presentation on emotional intelligence for the Cargill family. And he had 45 minutes. And so I sat in the back and I gave him a critique. And I said, hold on a second. I said, what's your goal with this? And he said, well, I want to teach them about emotional intelligence. I said, I don't think you're going to teach young billionaires anything in that time period. I go, why don't you switch your goal? Why don't you spark curiosity in 45 minutes? And then that curiosity will follow them after your presentation. And they'll never forget that you were the one that sort of lit that. And that's what you did for me too, with that 20 years ago. And I think you've done that with hundreds of thousands of people, if not more. Millions. Actually, you add TV and Broadway. Is you make, and you have made, the unapproachable so approachable, which is like, the stuff that you talk about is really can be daunting and can be intimidating. And then when you hear you talk about it, you're like, man, like it makes sense. It's like you took apart the toys, you're taking apart the market, you're taking apart this interest rate. I love that. And so let's go to, your speaking voice, because I want to, that's obviously, and a lot of my listeners are going to talk a lot about speaking, and you are by far one of the greatest speakers I've ever seen. And not only in the tone and the cadence and the voice, but the structure, the sequencing, your ability to have the dynamic nature. I've watched you go really smooth and talk about something in a calming voice. And I've also seen you rile up an audience and with excitement. So you have this range of all that. And of course we learn that over skill and time. But who was your first mentor for speaking? Who was the person that sort of inspired you or taught you or even you learned from?
It's interesting. I always had a desire to want to speak. I always wanted to, I liked having an audience. So let's
start. That's a good one. That's a good place to start.
Yeah. Right. So I liked it. I felt that in order to keep that audience, I had to have something to say that was of interest. So I tried to refine that message, but the first person that gave me an opportunity to speak as a professional was Deborah Jones. So I owe her a lot of credit. And Deborah was a terrific speaker, but she had a stable of speakers. You might recall Greg Frost, right? So Greg was an icon in the mortgage industry and a wonderful speaker. He was her top dog speaker. Okay. And as it turned out, in life, the way God works, the way the universe works, just things just happen, So her and Greg, for whatever reason, they had a falling out. Her like threat to him was, well, there's this guy I see on TV, this Barry Habib, he's a young guy. I'm going to bring him in to replace you and blah, 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 this and that. So anyway, she brings me in and she thought Greg and I would be at odds with each other. Greg and I wound up being the closest of friends. I love him to death, and rest his soul. Just
rest his soul, man. Absolutely.
Oh, he was a genius and a heart of gold. So
absolutely.
But Deborah taught me so much, and she taught me a lot about speaking. And, one of the first things she said to me, René, was that, back in the day, I'm dating myself here, I'm going back over 30 years, from the stage, you want to have a product. And she said, well, create some tapes. So I created these cassette tapes, right?
I love it. Yeah.
Because you could sell those from the back of the room. And she said, I'm going to tell you one thing, though. She said, you get better, your tapes don't. And I didn't really understand it then. But I'm sure, René, when you listen to some of the things that you've said a while back, you almost can't listen to it, right? Well, you kind of, you almost want to cringe. Am I right, René?
This
there you go.
This was my mentor. This guy, literally, I'm opening up, if you can't see this, I'm opening up literally a cassette series by Don Kloss and Dave Pemberton. Dave Pemberton was one of Tony Robbins' coaches. So yeah, keep going on the cassettes. The cassettes, you get better, the cassettes don't. Ooh, that's deep.
Right. And that was an important, I really didn't understand the impact of that when she first said it. But, when you listen to some of the things before, it's almost like you cringe, right? I'm sure you kind of go through the same thing, because the goal is for everyone, for all of us, and whatever you do, not just as a speaker, whatever you do, it's to just constantly push to get better. Yeah. And that's like one of the best things you could want, is that when you look back at where you were in the past, you could see how far you've come, how you've kept growing, and especially now you think about your own mortality more and more as you get older, right? And especially if you have something that happens that really wakes you up there too. And you say, boy, I wish I had more years or more time. But then you say, well, boy, to go back and to relearn all that and do that all over again, it's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not sure if I want to go through all those heartaches.
You got to go
again.
back, and you got to lose your knowledge as you go backwards.
Yes.
It's like, maybe not. Yeah.
Maybe not. Exactly.
So what I hope everyone's listening to is how your mindset and mentality follows you through all of these stories. Here's desire for learning. There's always a way to get better. There's always a way to push. There's this constant drive. And I think that I go back to, and I always love wondering, why is it that somebody has it and somebody doesn't? And then I look at, usually the people that have that grit to keep going come from going through hell when they were younger. And so what I've come to find is that there's so many people that have gone through really difficult times, vow to themselves to never let their children go through those times. And so we spend all of our time and energy to make sure that our children do not have the life that we had, only to rob them of that suffering, the difficulties, the adversity, so that they can get a chance to see and test who they are. And then we wonder why they give up so easily. I think I was talking about somebody, my friend of mine, who's 33 years old. He's probably worth $85 million. His family together is worth over $1 billion. And we were talking about this concept. He goes, I'm scared to death and my kids aren't going to do this. I said, well, you got to manufacture some struggle for them. And, you look at a lot of your clients and people that we work with in the mortgage real estate industry, they just came off the back end of a few years of suffering. And I always tell them this, and please build or chime in on this, that if you're in the middle of your darkest time, I said, welcome to the story that you're going to share in a couple years. Here's the best part. You're the main character in this story. What's your next move? In this movie, if you knew this was the comeback story, what would that hero do? And I think it's a way for kind of let them step outside of themselves and look in and say, okay, if I'm going to tell this story, the hell story do I want to tell? Well, I got that choice right now. And so what do you say about, for, what's been your sort of approach when adversity it's such a cliched term, but when life throws that shit at you and throws the unexpected, that curveball that for so many would just crumble you. Why is it? And what is it that you can tell people?
I try and hit curveballs. I become a curveball hitter, so I'm going to learn how to hit curveballs. So when life throws me a curve, I say to myself, good thing, because you're a curveball hitter. You can hit curves. You've hit them in the past. And I draw upon those memories. But, with our kids, like I've got 4 amazing children and they're all humble. And you met Dan, you've seen Dan. He's quite a calm. His twin sister, Nicole, is incredible. Jake and Jared, incredible. There's a lot that you said there that had me thinking. So I'm going to try and recapture some of it. You're the hero of this story when you face adversity. So I would coach all my kids' sports. And I remember as a coach of the teams, sometimes we're getting our ass kicked. I would get these kids and I would tell them, this is great because we can now make an amazing comeback that you'll always remember. So we did the first part, right? We're down, but now it sets the tone to where we can come back. So even trying to instill that in kids, and with my kids, by the way, they've always remained humble. There's a story I want to share with you in just a minute that's important. But first, with understanding that you have a choice when you're in that darker place, when you're in that adversarial place. And the choice is to feel sorry for yourself or to draw upon gratitude and to say, wow, even though I have this, let's not forget, first of all, while it's bad, it could always get a lot worse, right? No matter where you are, there's a lower level. Trust me. No matter where you are, as bad as you think it is, it can get a lot worse.
True.
But there's also so much good that we need to remind ourselves of all the time. And that balance and that ability to say, okay, I want to focus on the good, focus on what I can do, and focus on taking step in the right direction to the things I can control. Quick story about Dan and Nicole when they were little. Kids are kids. Right now, I married my first wife when I was very, very young. So it didn't work out. We got divorced, and with Dan and Nicole, I always was a good dad, always coached. I spent a lot of time with them, and I would maybe overcompensate a little bit and maybe spoil them a little bit with, but we had rules, if I was tough on them, in a way that if they were not behaving well, they wouldn't get anything. But if they behaved well, then I would pretty much give them almost anything as long as they behaved well. So they kind of learned that good gets them a lot, bad gets them nothing, so it kind of trained them. But there was a turning point. They had friends over. And, even though I was young, I was doing well, in the mortgage business and this and that. And my son, Dan, said, you know what? We have this. They don't even have that. They don't even have this, that. And I said, Dan, you're making fun of them. But when Dad was a little boy, Dad had nothing. So if you make fun of them, it's like you're really making fun of Dad. He gasped. And his sister looked wide-eyed. And, from that day on, they had a complete change. So, it's really important to plant seeds, not for the sake of planting seeds, but plant seeds when the ground is fertile, when you could really, you're the master of storytelling and you're the master of kind of putting things into context. And if we can do that at the right time, we can make an impact on people that just lasts. So, this is, I just wanted to kind of go there for a minute because it kind of reminded me of some important things and talk about tough love, right? So Dan, Nicole, Jake, Jared, they were always really, really good. But Dan, as talented as he is, he was a pain in the ass sometimes. You had some friends that kind of brought out the mischiefy side of him, right?
It's probably because he's a lot like that.
Yeah, because he's a lot like that. So he worked with me, and he was partying. He was showing up late, do this and that. I gave him ample warning. I said, Dan, you're being a bad example. I can't let my son get away with this because then other people will not respect what's going on here.
Yeah.
So literally, and Dan will tell you the story, I fired him. Fired my own son. He actually wound up working at places like Sports Authority, and he got a taste of how tough it is, right? It was a couple of years, and I gave him another chance. And of course, he's become quite the superstar.
It's been so fun watching him grow through this. And I remember when I first met him and who he is now, and just you watch this, no, my mother did this kind of work before and no one thought I could do it. And so I saw him and I'm like, I remember talking to him. I'm like, you just keep following and keep following Dad. It's not that you're going to copy him. You're going to embody him. And then afterwards, you're going to become you and trust that process. And it's just fun watching him sort of become him and come into his own. And that's
he's
really
amazing. Cool. They all are, so I'm really blessed. René, I know I went off the track.
That's exactly what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to do that. Like you had said something that I thought was really cool, and I want the audience to hear this. We talked about the difficulties and everything, and he immediately went to gratitude. And gratitude, and I love to move beyond the cliche of these things like you got to be, gratitude practice. It kind of just goes in one ear and out the other, even though it's true. And that's why it's a cliche, because it is so true. But there's a lot of research, and there's this concept called incompatible emotions. And gratitude and anxiety are incompatible because of the neuromechanisms in the brain. They can't exist and happen at the same time. And so the antidote to anxiety and depression is gratitude. It literally shifts physiologically in the brain, those things. And my study's always been watching people who are successful in whatever arena they're in. And what are those commonalities? And I think there's a book even over here on my desk, on my shelf. It's called Oneness. And on the back is a quote from the Dalai Lama. It says, every major religion in the world has the same common goal to make their followers better people. And in there, it takes little ideas like the golden rule, and it finds that same language in every major book, religious text in the world, in all the major religions. And I think that same concept and idea is saying, take all of the majorly successful people, and there are those common threads that they all hold on to. And it's in those moments when things get tough. What do you think then? My dear friend Flex Lewis, 7-time Mr. Olympia, he talks about the unseen work. He's just a ridiculous mindset. I mean, to be in the zone as a bodybuilder for 7 straight years, nothing but net, and to be the best in the world, and he said, it's about the unseen work. He goes, put your damn phone down and let's see what you really do. Don't take a picture of your workout. What's the workout that no one sees? And I was like, wow, what are the books that no one sees you read, right? What are those things, those classes that no one's going to ever know that you did, those things that you overcame, those clients that you helped that nobody ever is going to know about? And how many of those, how many can you think about? I don't know to give me examples, but when you think about the unseen work, how much of that played into who you are?
It's constant. It's not taking a shortcut. It's there's things we could certainly get away with all the time. What I don't mean get away with in a bad way. I mean, you don't have to do everything perfectly. Nobody will notice, right?
Right.
But I'll notice. And that's a big difference. Like a lot of people will ask me, why are you, why are you so, it's good enough. I said, well, no, that's not good enough for me. Cause I know I demanded of myself to push myself to do it the right way, to see it through correctly. And, one of the things as we talk about gratitude is my way of turning it out of a cliche and into an operable practice is every morning, I literally out loud say all the things that I'm grateful for every single morning. And as I pray, I mean, even the things I'm going through now, I thank God for this dream life. And I bring it up this morning. It was a beautiful day. We're at this incredible place and we're great people. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, who would have dreamt that I have this opportunity to do this? So it's constantly reminding myself that this is something that I need to take a minute and appreciate and be grateful for. And as you said, that definitely helps to overcome those anxious times. The common thread I've also noticed amongst successful people is just like you said, but maybe a different word for it as well, could be optimism, right?
Yeah. There's the view of what's going on. You go back to even the reticular activating system in the brain that dictates what you pay attention to. The optimist is going to see opportunity and the pessimist is going to see negativity. And, there's a balance between the two, but your gratitude is triggering all of those different elements, which I love. And so if you were to think about this concept, and I'm kind of going with the flow here on what you were saying, there's an idea called amor fati. Amor means love, fati means fate. And, I'm watching you embody it. So for those who don't know, it's kind of a deep meaning, but it means to love your story and specifically to fall in love with even the tragedies of your story. And the reason you want to fall in love with it is because, one, you can't change it, the past. And so why not fall in love with it and pull out and draw out from it why it's there? And so when you find people that have sort of reached amor fati, which is, they thank God I went through that difficulty. Thank God we went bankrupt 3 times. So thank God because it taught me X. And, if somebody loves who they are, that means that by definition, they have to love the formula that created who they are. And so I'm going to ask a tough question, but I know that we're in the same mindset of this, but, I think we both believe that we're all given burdens, we're all given difficult things because, one, we can handle it, but there's a purpose behind it. And now here you are diagnosed with cancer. You're welcome to share exactly what kind. But what do you love about that? Because we can't change the fact that you have it yet. But what if I see you sort of embody this approach and this spirit, and you bring this energy on stage and you're still out there speaking and you're still doing all this stuff. And I'm watching you sort of embrace this shift. What is it about it that you feel gracious about to be able to embrace during this time?
Well, it's been hard. It's been hard. So in February, Valentine's Day of all days, I was diagnosed with cancer. I found out a couple of weeks later with a PET scan that it was a double hit B-cell lymphoma with a laparoscopic biopsy that they had to do as well. So that's a very, very nasty, aggressive cancer. And it's a lymphoma, so it's not a hard tumor. It's not something they could take out or anything like that. I had to go through a very rigorous, the most rigorous chemotherapy regimen that there is called EPOCH-R. They all stand, each one of those letters stands for a specific chemo drug that you take. So it's tough. And I had to be hooked up 5 days consecutively, 6 rounds, which you can't get away from having this infusion. I have the port here, so it hooks up to you, and sleeping with this bag for 5 days, so 6 rounds. But I was grateful. I found the positives. Initially, I thought I was going to have to be in the hospital for that, but I was able to do it outpatient. So as inconvenient as it was, I did. And then I didn't want this to be the decision I made. Is I didn't want the chemo treatments to be something that I would have to go through, but I wanted to get from it. I wanted to, life is very short. So I don't want to say, okay, this is a chunk of my life that's, clipped. No, I wanted to enjoy the days I could. I wanted to have fun. I took that bag with me. I would go out to dinners with it. I would do stuff. Like, I didn't care. Like this heavy thing I had to lug around. I worked every day that I could. And it was my attitude, I think, and my positivity that really helped me get through it. And, Rosa, her
She's been great.
unbelievable support that she had, but we had a lot of good times even through that. And then unfortunately, after that, we discovered that it didn't get all of it. So it didn't finish the job. So now a week from today, I have to have radiation for 2 weeks, but this is all in preparation for something called CAR T, chimeric antigen receptors, CAR T of your T cells. So your T cells are, our policemen that, fight off the bad stuff, and they were even supposed to fight off cancer. But sometimes the cancer eludes it. So what they did on Monday, Renee, is it was 5 hours. It was not easy. So they do an apheresis. So they kind of take your blood, they circulate it twice around. They take 12 liters around. We have about 6 liters of blood, and they pull out your T cells. Then they send them off to a lab, and that's what's happening right now. They program them to now be able to identify a marker in the cancer. The marker is CD19. So it says, okay, if I see CD19, I'm going to attack it. A week from today, I start radiation for 10 days because the radiation will weaken the cancer a little bit and maybe shrink it a little bit. But it also does something to the composition of the cancer that makes it more susceptible to the T cells. That's what we're trying to do. So December 9th, I go back. And before that, they give you 3 days of chemo because they want to deplete your lymphatic system to make room for the T cells. And then I get that infusion. And then they have to monitor you. You have to stay close. Now, there's another thing I was supposed to be in the hospital for, but they said, you're in good enough shape, so we're going to let you do it outpatient. I just have to stay close. I have to stay at a hotel a few minutes from the hospital, come in every day. But because there's cytokine response syndromes and neurotoxicity that can occur. So they want to keep a close watch on you. Yeah. But, God willing, I'm just hoping that this does it. It's a very nasty kind of cancer that I have. And, the crazy thing, Renee, is like, I don't drink. You know me. I don't drink, right? I don't smoke. I work out. Maybe I eat a little bit more than I should at times.
You enjoy the good food.
Yeah, but I mean, I was the guy that never got sick. You and I are on the road. How many times we're around people, hugging people,
Can't
pictures
afford it.
I would never get sick. And people would always say, you never get sick. Why? Well, boy, I guess this is just one of those mysteries that we don't know. So you can get a curveball that you're thrown. And I've had many curveballs. It's devastating when you get the news, Renee. It's devastating. You know what to do. And September 3rd, when I had my scan, I thought it would be over. And they said, still there. That was devastating to me. But, you have to, it's not like I just bounced back immediately. You got to just kind of absorb the punch a little bit. And then you have to draw upon your gratitude. You have to draw upon your optimism. You have to kind of think about, okay, where can we go from here? What can we do from here? What are the things in my control? And this is how I've been able to cope with this. It's not an easy thing, but this is how I've been able to cope and to turn it around and be optimistic and enjoy days. Like most days, I'm very, very happy and very optimistic.
Yeah.
Today was a great day. I'm happy all day today.
Love it. I love it. I think Emerson said, adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And that's why I always get fascinated when I watch people when they're going through adversity. I take a lot of notes because I think you get a chance to see who they really are. All of us agree. Watching you blossom during the difficulty.
Thanks, bro.
It just speaks to who you are.
I didn't answer your question because you asked, what do we love about it? I guess to find love in this is, through this very difficult situation, I think it's allowed me to have more fulfillment in that I believe I've been able to help other people who are going through this.
Yeah. Give
them inspiration, give them hope. Those who have had family members have told me that I've been able to give them a perspective that helps them. And Renee, we talk about this, you and I, a lot, and you've heard me talk about it a lot and say, there's people that you need financial goals, you need achievement goals, and they're all important. You need them, clearly. But so many people we know that are so successful, but they're not happy. And I think they're missing fulfillment. And that really comes from being of service to others and having meaning in your life and doing good for others. And this has allowed me I've always wanted to do good for others, Renee. You know that. You know my heart. You know how I am. But this has allowed me to do more. So if I were to answer your question, I guess the part that I love about this experience is that it has allowed me it appears that I've made a difference and helped and done good for others.
It also, we get to observe moments of truth. I mean, difficult times put us in these moments of truth where you just don't have the time for the fluff and the BS. You get a chance to sort of observe the truth of life through watching you do this and watching you share your story and going from the heights, and then this happens and you didn't fall. Like, even though you wanted to, even though it feels that way, it hasn't been experienced on our end at all. And know that, every single person that I know that knows you is saying the same thing, just the admiration, the inspiration that they're pulling from you. And I'm going to choose to believe that that's why it happened. And, also you're going to show us how it's going to be beat. And so it's
I'm doing my
going to be a great story. And you're taking all those hero moves as a main character in your movie.
Well, and the thing that's really deeply important to me is I want to be a good example for the people I love, for my children. I want to be a good example for them, and I want to show them that life is full of adversity, and when you are facing adversity, that there's good ways that you can get through it and handle it. There's ways that we can get through. We don't want to feel sorry for ourselves. We don't want to go in a hole. We don't want to spiral downward. We've seen that story, and that's not a good one. But I just want to be that example for my children, and I hope to God I could be that person that others can point to as well. And God forbid, when they have their turn of adversity, they can maybe just draw upon this and come out of it a little faster and a little better.
I love it. I can just tell you, even if you do no more inspiration, you've inspired millions, and that legacy is intact. But now we still got more work to do. So we're going to
we do
change the subject for a minute here. And I want to talk about Rock of Ages, because I saw it. It was such a cool show. I mean, it was so well done. Not even a fan of rock and roll in that time period, but you just love it. I became a fan of every one of those songs after watching that show. How did this idea come about of Rock of Ages to, the Broadway show that ran for I don't know how many years, and then into the movie, and now you've sort of taken some of the best members of that group, created a band, so it's this constant sort of repurposing and sort of riding out that whole franchise. Tell us, how did Rock of Ages come around?
Well, you know what? The band is something I'm very passionate about. I sing in the band, and we have such a great time. It's a great band because some bands, there's egos there. We just love each other. We just have fun. We're just there to hopefully make people have a good time. We just played the NAMB conference. It was a big hit. They just contracted this out to come back next year because everybody really loved it. So we just have a good time. We love seeing others have a good time, and that's kind of where it started. So René, I had a lot of time on TV, and someone who saw me on TV years ago said, "Hey, would you want to be in a movie?" René was younger. I was a decent looking guy, and this and that. So be in a movie. Sure, what the heck, right? And little did I know that really what they liked best was my voice. So I got a role in a kids movie. I played Colonel Kaboom because they really liked my voice. But then that kind of, through networking and this and that, I wound up being about 10 different movies with speaking roles. So 10 different Hollywood films, made a lot of contacts, this and that. But one of the movies, it's called Barry Monday. It's a good movie. You see it on now. It's on all the Netflix and this and that. So Barry Monday, and it's like I said, it's a good movie, all-star cast. And the guy who wrote it was Chris Dorenzo. Being a friendly person, I'm with Chris, and I always love to learn, right? So I'm like, okay, so Chris, we're looking at my scenes, and I'm like, oh, what could I do better? What could I do different? I love to be coached. And he says, Barry, he said, you're a cool guy. He said, I want to show you something I'm working on. And he wrote the script for Rock of Ages. And I read through it. I devoured it. I loved it. And me and 4 other guys, we said, okay, let's take a shot. And we took it off Broadway. And, I had to hire the cast and do the marketing and negotiate the deals. And so it was passionate work that we were doing. And who knew it became so well liked. And then we said, do we really take a shot and now bring it on Broadway, which was an enormous investment, enormous risk. More than 90% of the shows lose all their money. Very few make money. So, it was really a labor of love, and maybe it was a foolish investment to make, but I did it and took it on Broadway. And boy, oh boy, what a rewarding experience, and the joy that it's brought to so many.
How many years was it?
It ran for over 6 years, the 27th longest running show in Broadway history.
Wow.
And, I would go to the show almost every night, right? And this was during the financial crisis. So people were so depressed. They'd come to the show and they'd be so happy.
Yeah.
We always got huge standing ovation at the end. And everybody, we finished with Don't Stop Believing. and everybody be dancing and up and high-fiving and so happy. Everybody be watching the cast going crazy in the crowd. And I would go to the front and I would always look back at the audience.
Yeah.
That was the reward for me. Like I would be able to see how much joy that we were bringing to people in this dark financial time. And people kept coming back to the show because they needed it for their mental well-being, because it just made you feel good. And that was the reward for me.
That's so cool. That's so cool. It was so well done. And so you also, now you have a show in Vegas too? Is that a different show you've invested in?
We just opened Mavericks there and have Chris Angel. I've had a couple of other shows that didn't last very long. It didn't do well that I've done in Vegas, Heartbreak Hotel and the Whitney Houston one. But Chris Angel's really, that show's a stud. That's great. That one's doing really, really well. So that and Rock of Ages have been two that have been really good for me. And the other was, you dabble a little bit, you're not always going to catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. But you're having fun doing each one of them. That's fantastic.
It really is. It is fun.
So talk to me. We'll do one quick segment, because I know we have some of the audience here is mortgage. A lot are not a mortgage, but let's appeal mortgage or real estate. And for those of you that maybe even aren't mortgage real estate, I want you to hear. I want to know what's happening, and should we be buying a house right now? Is this the time to buy a house? And tell us. I think it is, but tell us why, and tell us what's happening. And I want the segment to kind of be the one that we can use.
Can I just take that and maybe just answer the question, but with a little bit of a different lens? Because
please, you can even change the question. I should be asking.
No, it's the perfect question, but the way I want to answer it is the way that I want to explain to people that are watching, that are in mortgage and real estate, that they need to answer it.
Okay.
So let's just take a quick example. Customer is going to ask every mortgage professional and every real estate professional the exact question you asked, regardless. I did mortgages for over 20 years. Every single client asked me the same question. So they're going to say, is it a good time to buy a home? Is the market going to crash? Is it overheated? How's the housing market here? And also, which way are rates going? Now, a salesperson in the industry would typically answer the question something like this and say, well, the market seems pretty good right now. And, interest rates, boy, if I knew where rates are going, I'd be having a pina colada on the beach somewhere. That's a way to answer the question, but I think it's a missed opportunity. What I would rather people answer the question is like this. So it's a great question, and it's an important one, because this is an enormous investment that you're making. And yes, prices have risen. So, people tend to remember the years that we had the housing bubble, and could that happen again, right? So home value is going to be determined, like any other commodity, by supply and demand. So fortunately, I have a bird's eye view onto the supply side. And as I look into this market that you're looking to buy, I can see that supply is very tight right now, which bodes well, because if supply is tight, that's one side of the equation. That means that prices will be well supported. But the other side is demand, and demand is going to be very much determined by mortgage rates. So let's take a look at what's driving mortgage rates. One thing is that mortgage rates are going to follow the 10-year treasury. Now, the 10-year treasury is important to understand, because
for those that don't know what a 10-year treasury is, what's that?
The 10-year treasury is a government bond that they issue where they give you an interest rate that's fixed for 10 years. It's kind of like buying a bank CD for 10 years, except you're buying it from the government instead of your bank. So pretty simple. So the 10-year treasury is going to influence mortgage rates. So if the 10-year treasury comes down, mortgage rates will come down. So the 10-year treasury is also going to be influenced by the Fed. Now, the Federal Reserve is going to determine interest rates, and they've been in the news a lot. Back on September 18th, they reduced interest rates 0.5%. Then just yesterday, they reduced interest rates another 0.25%. So as they continue to reduce interest rates, the 10-year treasury will drop and mortgage rates will drop. And for every 1% drop in mortgage rates, 5 million more people become eligible to buy a home. So therefore, you're going to see a lot more demand, very supportive of pricing. So what would make the Fed cut interest rates further? Well, there's a couple of interesting things. It tells us what their intentions are. It's called the Summary of Economic Projections. They telegraphed that 0.5 point cut. They telegraphed yesterday's, and they're even telegraphing another cut of 0.25% on December 18th. But here's what's really interesting, is that in 2025, they're forecasting about 1% to 1.25% of cuts. What this should do is this should help the 10-year treasury decline mortgage rates decline, the demand equation go up, supply is tight, tells me that this is a really good time for you to be buying a home.
I love that. There's a science to it. You know the science. You break it down. If you're in the industry, mortgage or real estate, you should be listening to him and just copying it verbatim and until it becomes who you are. Now, in terms of, isn't it true too that throughout the entire history of the appreciation of homes, that it's been pretty much continuously up, minus a couple little dips, right? But when you zoom out far enough, it's always been a trajectory up.
Well, you nailed it. Out of the last 82 years, there have been 5 years that home values have not gone up. Other than that, 77 out of 82 years, home values have gone up. 5 years were all around the period of time in the bubble. There were some interesting things that occurred during the bubble. Builders were building many more homes than were needed. That was one. Number two is that we had the impact of demand being very soft. Remember, we said demand is going to be an important part of this. Well, the reason why demand was very, very soft in 2006, 2007, 2008 is because it was impacted by low birth rates 33 years before that. Why 33 years? Because 33 years is the median age of a first-time home buyer. So why were birth rates very low? Well, in 1973, we had Roe v. Wade. So abortions were legalized. Birth rates plummeted for several years. And then 33 years later, you had many fewer people that were going to be looking to purchase homes. Same time that builders were building more homes than they ever built before. They were building 2 million homes a year where the normal is 1.3 million. So there was a perfect formula that isn't really going to be replicated. Here's the way to look at this generationally. Currently, if you look at millennials, if you take millennials who have a median age of 30, there's 45 million millennials with a median age 30. It's total 73 million. But 45 million, you could say their median age is 30. So, if you took 30 and spread it out, you capture 45 million people in both directions at 30. Their homeownership rate right now is 33%. But the millennials who have reached age 40, their homeownership rate is 55%. So if you track over the next 10 years, that 22% jump means you'll have 10 million more homeowners. Far more interesting, Gen Zers. Gen Zers now, they're between ages 12 and 27. So the median age is 20. Their homeownership rate is 8%. If they do the same thing by age 30 as millennials do, their homeownership rate goes from 8% to 33%, a 25% jump on 69 million people. That's 17 million more homeowners. You put them together, that's 27 million more homeowners that will be created in 10 years, minus some people that die off, minus people that double up, about 19 million homes needed. We're only on pace to build 13 million homes in the next 10 years. So when you have more demand than supply, so again, this answers your question. Is this a good time to buy a home? I truly believe so.
And it's even regardless of where the rates are, even because you can restructure that loan, but you can't restructure the initial purchase price.
That's absolutely correct. Now, those interest rates will act as a throttle. When they're down, volume and prices will go up. When they go up, volume and prices will ease. But over the long haul, through those waves, you think about it. Think about a child who's got a yo-yo, and that child's going up and down with the yo-yo in their hand. But if they get on an escalator in a shopping mall and that escalator is going up, think about the movement of the yo-yo up and down as the activity depending on rates, but the general direction of the escalator is going up over time.
Oh, that's such a great analogy.
Thank you.
That just blew my mind. So because you have to think of the elevator, not the yo-yo.
Escalator, yes, exactly.
Elevator thinking versus yo-yo. That's bro. See, now I'm going to be using that in other arenas, even though I don't sell mortgage or real estate. But I think that's such a great analogy of you're stuck on the minuscule yo-yo, but where's the elevator going? And that's where you're playing chess. Everyone else is playing checkers. I mean, literally, it's brilliant. And I think that, if you don't sell real estate right now and you're not a loan officer and you're wondering that question, I mean, he just laid it out for you. This is the time to be taking advantage of it, regardless of where the rate is, because you're in the game in that you want to be in the elevator going up. I just love that. Barry, we're approaching the end. I'm going to ask, I'm debating on asking a really tough question.
It's a tough question.
It's one that, and here's why. I think you and I are such realists in terms of we look at life head on. And I think and this is a question that I love asking, but I was like, but I want to ask it Also because I'm confident the question is not a real one. But I love to ask this question of, if this was your last interview you ever gave in the world, which it's not, what would you want people to know? And what do you want people, what's the best piece of truth advice? And what does your heart want to say for you? It's like, man, you get one more thing. I need you guys to know this.
It is a hard question. The first thing that I'd want to always have is for the idea that my last interview would be my best. I always want that. I always say that when I speak. When people say, what was the best speaking engagement that you've ever had? Or what was the best talk you've ever given? I'd say, I'd want it to be this one. But then I'd always say that, but I don't think it's going to be as good as the next one I'm going to do. Right? So I always want to get better. So I'd want that. And what I'd want people to make sure that they got from our discussion today, and the things that you and I have tried to examine and expose, is that truly gratitude is one of the most important things that you can have. It is the way to get through the most difficult situations and times in your life. It is something that helps you to be happy. And in life, I mean, really, that's what we want. We just want to be happy, right? That's the goal in life, is just we want to be happy. We want to feel good. We want to be happy. And it's such a wonderful secret to focus on the good. I don't mean be complacent, but focus on the good. You know, you should always strive with one hand up, but one hand should be back pulling others up with you, right? So I think that these are the types of things, the fulfillment, the gratitude, the optimism. Those are what allows us to be happy. Making progress allows us to be happy. So if we're constantly thinking along those lines, it's not as if we ignore the difficulties. I'm not saying that. You got to face them head on. You've got to learn as much as you can about your adversary. Whatever you're going through, study it, understand it, do everything you can to be able to conquer it, but do so from a position of gratefulness, of appreciation for the things that are good in your life, and positivity that whatever your obstacle is, you'll face it with determination, with grace, and as an example to others of how you can go through these periods.
I love it. I keep playing what you said, which was my best, to know that this was my best one, but not as good as my next. And that philosophy, like, well, when was the last dinner you cooked? The last one I made, but it's not going to be as good as the last. I mean, if you approach everything as if it was your last, and then continue to beat and to grow and to continually improve, that is a wonderful way to, I think, maximize the fullness of life and the gifts that we have. And my friend, you have been blessed with so many gifts. You have blessed so many of us with your gifts. It's an honor to be your friend. It's an honor to have you on this podcast. And we're going to do another one. I'm going to come up with some even harder questions, because I feel like we're barely scratching the surface on what's in that mind of yours. And
well, I love you, brother. You know that. You know how I feel about you.
Love you back, dude.
I admire you. I admire the work you do. I think you're absolutely brilliant. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to see your rise and how you have over the years helped so many people. It's just, I'm so blessed to be your friend, and it's always a highlight when I get to see you. So God bless you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, my friend. So for those who want to follow Barry, you can follow him at Barry Habib. He's
I am Barry Habib on Instagram.
Yeah, I am Barry Habib. Sorry. And he's got a book, Money in the Streets, and you Google him, he's everywhere. Yeah, it's a story of his life and the reality of when you really start looking, if you know what to look for, you see opportunity in everything. With that, please, if you like this, please like, share, comment, all of those things, subscribe. And thank you all for tuning in. Barry, my friend, till next time, soon.
You bet. Love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you too, man.
Thank you for sharing this time with us. If the experience resonated with you, follow us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or AmplifyMyLife.com. Share it with anyone else who's ready to amplify their lives. And remember to let our hearts speak in sequence. For more from René Rodriguez, visit meetrene.com.